I don't think anyone can disagree that the past decade of volleyball has been dominated by the Polish men. Their stars are some of the biggest in the world. The Plusliga has risen to one of the elite leagues in the world. They've won the Champions League multiple times. And most importantly, they have dominated on the national team level. Look at what they've done over the course of the past, past decade is incredible. They've won 4 straight medals at the World Championships, including back-to-back golds in 2014 and 2018, 3 straight medals at the European Championships, finally getting over that Slovenian hump and culminating with a gold in 2023. They've dominated the VNL, winning 5 straight medals, including gold in the past 2 of the 3 years. That was all capped off with a silver medal at the Olympics in 2024. Surprisingly, only their second in their history. We are going to go over the Polish men's roster for the 2026 season. And now head coach Nikola Grbic and the Polish Sports Federation has announced their entirety of their list. This is the extended list, unlike France, which is just the national team. This is the extended list of the entire roster for the VNL and those who are going to be training in the gym. So let's go through this list right now. On the outside, you got Tomasz Fornal, Mikhail Girzo, Mikhail Grabik, Jakub Kiros, Wilfredo Leon, Nikolai Savitsky, Kamil Semeniuk, Arthur Shalpuk, Jakub Szymanski, Alexander Slivka, and Bartosz Zik. In the center position, you have Marcel Bakay, Blaze Bien, Jan Firle, Marcin Komenda, Jakub Prebilkovits, don't know if I pronounced that correctly, and Sergius Serafin. As the opposite position, you have Bartomiej Bolanj, Dawid Dulski, Wojciech Gajek, Bartosz Gomułka, Alexei Nasevich, Kevin Sasak. In the middle blockers, you have Matus Biniek, Simon Kubishak, Jakub Kukonowski, Bartolomiej Lamansky, Jakub Maszrak, Adrian Markiewicz, Jakub Nowak, Matus Novak, and Matus Poreba. And then finally, for liberos, you have Jakub Siunitis, Bartosz Fialek, Maximilian Gonitsky, Maxim Kadzierski, and Jakub Popivchak. And of course, let's break down this roster. And before we break down who's actually on the roster, we have to talk about who is missing. And first and foremost, we do have to talk about Marcin Janusz, who has been their setter for a number of years now. And he has announced his retirement from the national team, citing health problems. He has developed liver fibrosis from taking too many painkillers. And we're actually coming to find out that he has been dealing with this since the 2024 Paris Olympics, where, he's talked about how he was losing his feelings in his leg and he had never felt as much pain as he had in that moment. So in order to take care of his health and prolong his long-term career, Marcin Janusz will be stepping down from the Polish national team. And I think we can all agree that this is a huge blow for Poland, but at the same time, you got to do what's best for your life and your career. So we wish him the best. Other guys that we will be missing from this roster, Bartosz Kurek, not there. I mean, he's definitely just taking some time off. He's quite old out there. You got the Bartosz Bednors as well, who has been one of their mainstays. He will be taking some time off for family. And I mean, he seems like he's suffered a few losses in his family, so he's going to be taking some time off for them. Very understandable. You got Zatorsky as well, who will not be playing. I mean, I'm pretty sure he announced his retirement from the national team a while ago, so that was to be expected. Lukas Kaczmarek on the right side will not be playing. He did not have a great season for JSW this year, so that's a little bit to be expected, and I know some people in the Discord are quite happy about that as well. And then you also have Norbert Huber, and Huber, who was on the team last year, it sounds like he was actually supposed to be on the team. And allegedly, he called up Grbic 30 minutes before the announcement was made to say he would not be participating this year. And I mean, this is not the first time we've seen drama with Norbert Huber. And I mean, let's be honest. This guy is a stud. He was the Plusliga MVP in 2023 and 2024. He has been a multiple-time best blocker. He led the SV League in blocking this year. But, he did come into some criticism last year during the World Championships for criticizing the Philippines and their organization. And then Grbic went and criticized Huber for all of that. So this is not the first time that there's been a little drama about Huber. So very interesting that he will not be playing. And then this one is just for me. This isn't a guy that we've seen in the national team for a long time, but Bartosz Kwolek. I think that Kwolek is one of those perfect guys who would fit on this national team. He's a gritty outside who knows how to pass, knows how to play defense. And ultimately, I think he is exactly what this team would need. But a few years ago, when he was called upon by Gerbich to join this team, he declined the invite because he didn't want to play just a few events. He wanted his summer off, and it doesn't look like he will be called upon again. So I'm going to assume that Huber from now on will be getting the Kwolek treatment when it comes to future opportunities for playing for the national team. But past who are missing, there's a few guys that I want to name as newcomers. And maybe these guys aren't overall newcomers. Some of the guys have actually been on the rosters and played a couple of VNL games before, but these are guys that I really think you should watch out for because I think they're going to have an impact specifically in the VNL and potentially even the European Championships this year. The first one on this list is Alexei Nasevich, who played for Gdansk this year. And I mean, he is a 22-year-old who played the backup role for 1 week last year in the VNL. He only appeared in 3 matches, coming off the bench when he scored 12 points. So he's not someone who was really well known at all on the international stage, but he did have a really big year playing for Gdansk in the Plus Liga. He was 8th overall in scoring with 426 points, and he was also 6th overall in points per set, with averaging 4.35 points per set. And that was the 3rd best in the Plus Liga amongst all Polish scorers. Only Bartosz Filipiak and Wilfredo Leon were better than Nasevich this year. I really like the way he plays. He's pretty young. He's pretty physical. He's explosive. He's powerful. He's got some shots too. I think he was a big part of what Gdansk did this year. I think he's pretty exciting. Next up is Bartosz Gomułka, and Gomułka really impressed me this year. He came in off the bench for Warszawa, and it was supposed to be Linus Weber's team. He was supposed to be the stud on the opposite for Warszawa, and then towards the end of the season, Gomułka started getting more and more starts, and he has really impressed for a team that will be headed to the Champions League Final Four. He is now the undisputed starter for Projekt, and he is a 23-year-old lefty. He's a little taller than Nasevich, but I would say all around much less explosive, but he is very, very efficient. Even though he was coming off the bench, and as you can see here in his stats, didn't really start playing until like the last third of the season. This is when he kind of started starting, and then he was really impressive at that point. He hit 54% with a 40% efficiency, which is absolutely massive. I think he has really good vision and really good control, so I'm going to be interested to see if he can make the roster this year. Next up, we have 19-year-old Jakub Kidos. This is one of those guys who I think we should really watch coming out of Poland right now. 19 years old. He's 207 centimeters, so he's really big, and he is a lefty. He can score, and he's pretty good. And I think this is a guy who maybe won't play that much or even be featured in the VNL lineup, but he's definitely someone to watch because he impressed me quite a bit. Finally, we have Bartłomiej Lemański, and he's a little bit older. At 30 years old, he hasn't played on the national team since 2018, and he is a monster. 217 centimeters or 7'2". But the thing is, he had an absolute monster year in the Plus Liga. He led Skra in scoring with 372 points, averaging 3.12 points per set. He led all middles in scoring as well this season, and he was 15th in league scoring, which is pretty incredible. Like, look at some of those guys he was ahead of: Bolange, Schalpuk, Poitron. These are guys who are main options for their team, and Lemański in the middle is scoring more for them. But on top of that, Lemański was also 2nd in overall blocks this year in the Plus Liga with 54, averaging 0.62 blocks per set. So this is a guy who can get it done in attack and at the net as well. And he's 7'2". I think this is the perfect pick to join that Polish roster. Now, as we look at this roster, you're going to note that there's basically 2 groups on this roster. There's the main guys that everyone knows and everyone loves, and there is a lot of young guys. And this is kind of new for Poland. Before, when we saw their extended roster for the VNL and for the summer, there was a lot of tourists, as some people in the Discord are calling it. So just guys who are on the roster who will never see the light of day on the national team, but that are just there for training. But now there is a very big divide of mainstays in the national team and some younger guys who are mostly going to be a part of that U22 team. So very, very young guys who are going to come in and learn what being in the national team gym is like and what that training culture is like and what the expectations are to be on the Polish national team. As we talked about, arguably the best team in the world, and they need to set the standards now, and they need to see what those top dogs are doing day in and day out. And I think this is an interesting move because it's new for Poland and Gerbish to be bringing in these younger players, but also on top of that, there's a lot of guys who aren't playing in the Plus Liga, but they're playing in the lower divisions. And I do think that it's a different move than what we've seen from the French, for example, because the French, they're bringing in young guys who are going to be expected to play now, whereas Poland is bringing in younger guys who they're looking forward like past 2028. These are guys who are going to be on the national team into the 2030s and kind of be that next generation to play. So I actually really like the move by the Polish national team. I think this is the perfect time to do it. You know, you've got all of your stars right now, and why not bring in some young guys to really learn from them and establish that culture moving forward? Now, I'm going to break down this team position by position. And first off, we're going to start with the outsides. And the outsides are interesting because there's kind of three different groups of players on this outside list. You have the main guys, Fornal, Leon, Semeniuk, Shalpuk, Slivka, guys who have been there before, guys who we know and love, guys who are considered some of the best in the world. Then you have these kind of middle guys. That's Mikhail Gierzo, Jakub Szymanski, and Nikolai Savitsky, guys who are trying to earn their spot. They're a little bit older and they're not in that younger group. They're not going to be playing any age group competitions, but they're really trying to earn their spot amongst the main players on this team. And then you got the younger guys, right? Kiros, Bartosz Zik, and Mikhail Gorabek. First and foremost, with the main guys, this is the deepest outside core in the world. I don't think you can doubt that at all. When you look at Italy, when you look at France, Brazil, the US, maybe only the US competes with the top outsides. Still, you've got five guys deep who could start on this team at a moment's notice. Leon and Fornal, two of the superstars of the game. Semeniuk, who is just a steady presence, and he's a consummate winner who's won with Zaksa, who's won with Perugia, who's won with this Polish team. Shalpuk has kind of resurged his career in the past number of seasons. He was a mainstay for this team and helped them win a World Championships back in 2018, then was off the national team and now is back. And I mean, this year he was outstanding for Varsovia, hit 55% with a 44% efficiency. Huge for any outside player. Like, those are incredible numbers. And then you have Alexander Slivka, and this is a guy who has won Champions Leagues, has won with this team before, but has been in and out of the lineup and in and out of just like the volleyball zeitgeist since 2023 when he broke his hand. And now he didn't really feature much for Suntory last year, didn't play for the national team last summer, and then this year mainly came off the bench for Halkbank. But from all reports of what we've seen from him, even though he got limited action, he is looking better. So there's a lot of people who are expecting him to have an effect on this team this summer. But any way you cut it up, any one of those five guys could be starters for this team, and Poland is still in a fantastic position. When you're looking at the middle guys, starting with Mikhail Gierzo, now this is a guy who really impressed me this year, and he really stepped into his own this season for JSW. Now, when he started the year, I thought he was going to be a third guy coming in off the bench behind Nick Szczerjan and Mira Kujundžić. And, you know, he's a little bit older. He's 24 years old, 208 centimeters over on the left side, but he started coming in and being a starter partway through. He ended up being JSW's leading scorer this season. He led them with 354 points. He averaged 3.69 points per set, and he hit a 49% with a 38% efficiency. So that is not bad at all. And honestly, I expect to see him get at least a roster spot over the course of the VNL. Next up is Jakub Szymanski, and Szymanski is a 28-year-old journeyman who really impressed for Zaksa this year. He won the starting spot over Rafael Shimura and was really good for them down the stretch and into the playoffs. Now, he's a little bit undersized and isn't great at passing, so we may see him as a roster, but maybe just as a filler guy. But regardless, it's great to see him on this national team. And then Nikolai Savitsky is a guy who is very, very interesting because Savitsky is a guy who was massive in Lublin's run to the championships in 2025 and then was named to the VNL list, but then was caught for doping. And now a year later, after having lost an entire national team season, after having lost pretty much the entire Plusliga season, he has now been acquitted of those charges because of faulty lab results, which is absolutely insane when you think about it. So he is kind of being named to this roster as a nod, being like, hey, we know where you were. We know you belong on this roster, but there's no way he's in playing shape. We've seen him come off the bench a little bit for Lublin over the course of this playoffs, but to me, there's no way that we're going to see Savitsky play at all. Next up, we have the young guys in Jakub Kitos and Mikhail Grabek, and I already talked about Kitos. Once again, he's really big, really physical, but still 19-year-olds. And then Grabek is 20 years old, who played for a Division I team. Those are younger guys who I don't know if we're going to see on the roster. Maybe Kitos, because he has a little bit of his experience playing in the Plusliga and playing at that higher level, but still keep an eye out for them in the future. Next up, I'm going to talk about the liberos just because it's easy. We have seen a little bit of turnover in the libero department. So the two liberos from last year are back in Jakub Popivčak and Maximilian Granitsky. Those are two guys who are going to be able to really hold things down. And I don't really see a world where these aren't the guys who are leading Poland throughout the VNL and into the World Championships. And if they're not, it's a guy like Popivčak who isn't going to be playing because Granitsky's like 20 years old, right? So he is on the younger side, but he's already getting those reps. And on the other side of things, you also have Jakub Tiunitis, who was huge in the Plusliga this year. He was massive for Olsztyn, led the league in digs, averaging 2.44 digs per set. Popivčak, who was third and is known as one of the best defenders in the world at 2.36, was still behind him. We'll see Granitsky down here. Granitsky is actually, when you're looking at just pure stats from the liberos this year, he was seventh in passing, averaging a 49.08 positive passing with a 26.28 perfect passing rating, and then also averaged 2.11 digs per set. And as you see, Popivčak is below him in passing, and so is Sionitis. So Granitsky is one of those guys who can really make an impact despite his young age. But I don't really know if we're going to see Sionitis a little bit over there. But to me, it's all about Popivčak and Granitsky. These are going to be the two guys who are going to lead this Polish team, and for good reason, right? They deserve it. Next up, we have the middles. Even without Huber, who, despite everything around him, is one of the best middles in the world. This is still one of the best middle cores in the world, no doubt about it. And I honestly think it may be a bit of addition by subtraction just by getting rid of Huber. I think he's fantastic on the court, but there's clearly a bit of a distraction thing there. So once you take him out of the equation, it may even make things easier for Grbić, because past Huber, now you know who your starters are. Matus Bieniek and Jakub Kokonowski are two of the best middles in the world. Bieniek is so dominant. He hits well, he blocks well, and he's one of the best servers in the Plus League this year. Jakub Kokonowski is undersized, but he's so fast. He closes side to side so quickly, and he hits that first tempo ball so fast. And they just really round out Poland's roster so well. And I honestly don't think it's that much of a pop to say that Poland has some of the best blockers in the world. Plusliga is the best blocking leagues in the world, and you see that from this list. Without Huber, to me, I really think that Bartłomiej Lemański should be that third guy off the bench. He had a monster year in the Plusliga, as I talked about it. Led scoring amongst all middles, was second in blocking, led Skra in points. And at 7'2", he really just fits the Polish mold really well. Poland needs strong middles. It's part of their identity as a team. They need to be a strong blocking team. When they're in system, they need to be able to use their middle to be able to open things up. And when you have a 7'2" monster who knows how to get volume and can work off his setter and can still block, that is going to bring some attention to him. And unfortunately for guys like Jakubczak and Matrak and Markiewicz, there's just not that much room on this roster when you've got Kokonowski, Bieniek, Lemański, Poreba, and Novak, who are already on this team. And a guy like Jakub Novak, even though he was riddled with injuries this year, this is a guy at 20 years old who already has World Championship experience, who already has VNL experience. So that is one of the reasons why this middle group is so experienced, because even their youngest guy at just 20 years old has played at those highest levels. Next up, we have the opposites. And to me, this opposite group is really interesting for a couple of reasons. First off, Some of the guys who have really been the go-to guys for this Polish team over the past number of years aren't there anymore, right? No Bartosz Kurek, no Lukas Kaczmarek. And those are two guys who have been more or less the starters now for a decade plus on this team. And now it's not necessarily saying that they are out of it, but right now they're not on the team. I think it's going to be a battle for this starting spot. First, you have to look at the two backups that we've seen over the past couple of years. Bart Bovange was the backup at the 2024 Paris Olympics. He's had a really good year with Zawiercie this year. He's second in team scoring with 371 points. He's averaging 3.53 points per set, and he's hitting at a 52% with a 7% efficiency. Not bad at all. He's also 16th in league scoring. And then on the other side, you have Kevin Sosek. And Kevin Sosek was the leading scorer for Poland last year at the VNL, at a really good season for Lublin last season. But he has really struggled with some injuries over the course of this year for Lublin, and we haven't really seen him start in quite a while. So I'm not entirely sure if he's going to be ready for the VNL. But even without those two guys, and even with those two guys having all of that experience, I'm really looking to the two guys I talked about earlier in Nasovic and Gomułka to potentially step in and earn their spot. As I talked about, Nasovic is a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical, a little bit more explosive. And then Gomułka has been really steady for Projekt, right? And he's also going to be working with one of his club setters on the national team. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So I would really love to see Grbić give both of those two guys a more extended shot over the course of the intercontinental round at the VNL, because you know what you're going to get from Bovange. Sosek, you need to give him a little bit of time to recover. And both of these guys have proved themselves on the biggest stage in the Plusliga. So I would love to see them get some minutes. Now, I know a lot of people in the Discord are really excited to see David Dulski on this roster as well. And I'll be honest, I really don't see it. I really don't see it. He's 24 years old. And this year, he did have a pretty good year in the LNV. He was second in scoring in the French league, averaging 5.26 points per set and scored 552 points for Nice. But Nice, who finished 8th in the regular season, they didn't make it into the playoffs. They lost in the play-in. And I do think that playing in the French league is a lot different than playing in the Plusliga. And when we saw him play in the Plusliga, specifically last year for Stalnissa, he just doesn't do it for me. I think he is a big body who's a mid-level attacker with mid-level efficiency. And that's about it. I'm way more excited about slightly younger prospects in Gomułka and Nasovic about the way that they've played than David Dulski. And I mean, that is just my opinion. I know that he has been on some pretty good age class teams for Poland in the past, but I have really just not seen it from him whenever I've seen video of him or watched him play. And then finally, rounding out this roster, you have Wojciech Gajic. Gajic is playing for Long Beach right now in the NCAA. He's a lot younger, but I know some people in the Discord don't really like the fact that he went to LBSU and is playing in the NCAA this year. But regardless, he's one of those younger guys, and I don't think he fits in with the picture. I'm looking forward throughout the VNL this year for Poland. Finally, we have the setters. And now the setting position is really interesting because you have the retirement of a guy like Marcin Janius. Hell, you don't even have one of the best players in the world in Gregor Lomac. And if you don't know that joke, then you should join the Volleyball Source Discord. But it is clearly one of the position groups on this team that is looking forward to the future. You're bringing back Marcin Komenda, who was the starting setter for this Polish national team last year at the World Championships, where it lost to Italy in the semifinals and ended up getting bronze. This is a guy who has now set Lublin to back-to-back Plusliga finals. They won it that last year. We'll see how they do this year, as game one didn't go so great for them. And then in the backup position, you have Jan Firle. And Firle has done a decent job with Projekt Warszawa over the past couple of seasons. They're into the semifinals at the Champions League. They're right now playing for bronze in the Plusliga. And we've also seen him on this roster before. I think it was like 2023 when we saw him play for Poland, or maybe even 2022. I can't remember, but I've watched him play live in the VNL before. And I think he's very serviceable. He's a good setter, but I don't know if this team just needs good setters. I think they need a great setter. And Janusz was so good with his decisions, and it's part of the reason why Poland has been so good for so long. I know that there was some criticisms about how the Polish offense looked last summer, but I honestly don't think it comes down to Komenda and the way he ran it, especially when you look at what he's done with Lublin and how they look at times. Right. much more interesting, a much more creative offense. And I think that comes down to how Grbic wants them to run the offense. But past those two guys, you have no one who's in the Plusliga and a bunch of guys who are young. You've got guys who are from 21 years old to 16 years old on this roster. So it is clearly a lot of turnover. So everything is going to come down to Komenda and Firle. I would be very surprised if we saw any of these guys, maybe like one or two of them will travel, but I'd be very surprised to see any of them start a VNL match. Now, who? I honestly don't know. I don't watch Polish League First Division, so I can't really say with any certainty who any of these guys really are, but it is very interesting that they decided to go to a much younger generation of setters to really start building them up after guys like Komenda and Firle move on. Overall, we know that there won't be any big changes for this roster, right? Like the main guys are going to stay the main guys. And especially once we get into the European Championships at the end of the summer, this is going to be their team. And it's going to be a lot of guys that we've seen before, that we know and we love, and we know they can get the job done. But I think it's really clear that Poland is looking towards to the future by bringing in all these younger guys and getting to see the culture and what is expected from them in the national team gym. But we're not here to talk about the future. We're here to talk about 2026. And the reality is that whenever you're talking about the Polish national team, especially on the men's side, the bar is the ceiling. The bar is gold medal. Even last year at the World Championships, there was a view that losing to Italy in the semifinals was a bit of a letdown, and that wasn't good enough for some Polish fans. That getting second at the Olympics, even though now that we're learning that their starting setter in Janusz was injured, that wasn't good enough either. Honestly, I still think that we can expect Poland to vie for a medal in the VNL. I still think we can expect Poland to defend their championship 23 at the European Championships, but I do have a few worries on this team. It's not attacking, it's not serving, it's not blocking, it's not defense. All of those things are world class for this team. First contact is definitely going to be a bit of a worry for me for this team, especially if they're going to be starting like Leon and Fornal out there. I think if they have Semeniuk out there, it's going to be able to get some things better. Fornal is a pretty good passer, but he's not outstanding. So I think that's why we mostly saw Semeniuk play that P2 position last year at the World Championships. And the Papivchuk is a decent passer, but he's not fantastic either. He's better in the defensive side of things than the reception side of things. And the other side will be setting. Can Komenda and Firle lead this team to be elite? That will have to be one of the biggest questions and will be one of the biggest Achilles heels for this teams, I think, as we go down. But ultimately, I think it all comes down to how Grbic manages this roster. And I think one thing when you look at this Polish roster is they're looking at world championships and they're specifically looking at the Olympics. Leon wants to win the Olympics. Leon needs to win the Olympics to cement himself in the annals of volleyball as being one of the best players to play this game. And without an Olympic gold, there's always going to be one of those question marks. And also World Championships too, because remember, they won in 2014 and then they won in 2018 and then they're getting Leon in 2020, in 2019. Everyone's going to say Poland's going to dominate. And since then, maybe the results haven't been there as expected since Leon has joined this roster. I'm going to use a bit of a cliche here. There's no way for Poland to win the Olympics in 2028, now in 2026, and there's no way for them to win the World Championships in 2027 either, but they could really lose it now by the decisions they make right now. So I think it is imperative that the Polish national team get things right in 2026, and that's not winning everything in 2026. That's making the right plays now with this team and roster to make sure that they are the best versions of themselves in 2027 and in 2028. But regardless, it is going to be very interesting to watch this season and this Polish national team.